Part 11. A Middle School Cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 101. In the previous Higurashi serialized chapter, Kiyaki killed Hojo Satoko's uncle, which made many comic fans happy. However, when seeing Kiyaki in danger of being discovered, many supporters began to worry again. Especially when seeing that Officer Oishi seemed to have noticed something and was preparing to investigate, many people who supported Kiyaki's approach were worried. Of course, it is worth mentioning that in order to confirm the death of Satoko's uncle, Kiyaki went to Satoko's house with an axe and found and fished Satoko out of the bathtub. What made many readers, especially Lolita lovers, grit their teeth was that Kiyaki's head and body blocked most of Satoko's body. When seeing this half-hidden picture, many readers cursed Kiyaki in their hearts. It's a bit unscientific, however. Yang Wei, who had previously opened a gambling game online, was holding the newly bought Shonen Jump and was now full of doubts. It's obviously the final chapter, and the number of deaths has not reached 5. Could it be that the middle school student from Phoenix Court has found his conscience? No, no, no. This situation is completely impossible. The big brother told me before that the number of deaths this time will be beyond imagination. Forget it, I'd better take a look first. Yang Wei opened the comics and started watching this issue of Higurashi. In the comics, Kiyaki wanted to find Dri for help with Satoko on his back, but he accidentally learned that Dri committed suicide and Officer Oishi was missing. Because Satoko was still wearing a bath towel and it was inconvenient for her to move, Kiyaki and Satoko decided to go to Rika's house to find clothes first. Oh my god, the so-called missing is actually death, right? Is it a double kill right at the beginning? Yang Wei flipped through the comics again, with a helpless expression on his face. It doesn't have to be like this, right? I can understand that Officer Oishi is missing or dead, but what about Dri? Although he treated Kiyaki as a patient with mental paranoia before, he shouldn't be dead, right? Is it really okay to just give him lunch boxes like this? Complaining as he was, Yang Wei continued to read. When the two people in the comics came to the shrine, Kiyaki confessed to Satoko. Kiyaki told Satoko that those who died had been cursed by him before, hoping to die, but he didn't expect that they really died. And Kiyaki also told Satoko that Satoko's uncle was also killed by him. Satoko persuaded Kiyaki to go back and rest, and then went into the shrine to change clothes, leaving Kiyaki with a dazed look. This development finally has a good ending. Yang Wei breathed a sigh of relief. The Sorcerer's Path is the third story of Higurashi. Finally, a slightly normal, oh my god. How could this happen? In the comics, Kiyaki was attracted by the noisy crows and found Rika's body lying in a pool of blood. Like Kiyaki, Yang Wei was shocked. While Kiyaki was surprised, he waved the axe in his hand to drive away the crows, and Rika's blood was stained on the way. After Kiyaki drove the crows away, he also noticed the blood on the axe, and Satoko, who had changed her clothes, thought Kiyaki had killed Rika and ran away screaming. Kiyaki, who was chasing Satoko, tried to explain something, but Satoko ran away desperately regardless of anything. In the end, Kiyaki caught up with Satoko on the suspension bridge. After Satoko recalled some past events, she suddenly pushed the defenseless Kiyaki off the suspension bridge. The last sentence was to fall down. What an unfair ending. Kiyaki's hand holding the suspension bridge loosened. Because of Satoko's blame and shaking, Kiyaki's hand holding the suspension bridge rope loosened. Kiyaki fell with tears in his eyes, as if he was blaming the world. Where did those shining days spent in Hinamizawa go? No, where did it start to become strange? My last wish during the fall may be the death of the strange world of Hinamizawa itself. This is really... Yang Wei suddenly felt extremely depressed when he saw this. Obviously, Kiyaki just wanted to protect Satoko, and the murder of Rika also explained the misunderstanding, but in the end, Kiyaki was pushed off the suspension bridge by Satoko, which was really a bit beyond his expectations. Watching Kyaki's monologue during the fall, Yang Wei couldn't help but complain, this Kyaki should be the hero, right? Why do I feel like he has completely become a villain after seeing this? Hey, there's more to come. Yang Wei thought that the story ended when Kyaki fell into the lake, but he found that the comics didn't end. After being surprised, he continued to read the comics. The scene in the comics suddenly shifted to a tavern. People who were eating were looking at the TV in surprise, and a disaster news was playing on it. A large-scale disaster occurred in Hinamizawa. Although the details have not been ascertained, toxic volcanic gas was ejected from somewhere near Hinamizawa and became a gas flow, directly attacking the Hinamizawa area, killing all local residents. The number of victims that can be confirmed now exceeds several thousand, and it is predicted that more victims will be found. It has just been confirmed that a survivor seems to have been found. The survivor is Mr. Kyaki Mahara, who lives in Hinamizawa. Although Mr. Kyaki Mahara also inhaled some toxic gas when he was found, he has been sent to the hospital for rescue and has barely saved his life. Thousands of people, what is this? Yang Wei couldn't calm down at all. Could it be that the head of the Phoenix Academy did it on purpose after seeing the gambling game? In a previous bet initiated by Yang Wei on the internet, a Hansakata fan once said that 20 characters would die in the Kongsha chapter. At that time, Yang Wei completely scorned this statement. In the entire Hansakata, there were less than 20 plot characters. But now looking at the last news broadcast, 20 people died, etc., it is too underestimated the level of ferocity and madness of the Phoenix Academy murderer. Hinamizawa's leaked. Yang Wei turned forward and stopped at Kyaki's monologue. Could this happen because Kyaki's curse took effect? The more I look at it, the more I don't understand. It's clear. Monday was the day when Shonen Jump was released, and just as Yoshida complained to Makoto Takahashi, less than 2 hours after its release, the editorial department was bombarded with phone calls. What on earth is going on? Why does the ending of the Kongsha arc turn out to be like this? Why was Kyaki pushed into the river by Satoko even though he was trying to protect him? If you serialize such sadistic comics, your editorial department should close down as soon as possible. I will never read Junk again. Tell that crazy cartoonist from the Phoenix Academy to come out and apologize, or I'll kill him. The continuous calls made everyone in the editorial department complain and all focused their resentful eyes on Yoshida. Of course, the editor-in-chief also has a certain responsibility in this matter, but everyone has a tacit understanding, and no one turns his resentful eyes towards the editor-in-chief. Well, he probably doesn't dare, right? It's already this time, I should go to Cheng's house to collect new manga manuscripts. Yoshida completely ignored the harsh looks from everyone, with a bad smile on his face, and abandoned it under the pretext of collecting manga. The colleagues who were wailing successfully escaped. A dead Taoist friend is not a poor Taoist. I feel deeply about Aiken's words now. When Yoshida came to Takahashi Makoto's house, he found Takahashi Makoto browsing the web with an inexplicable smile on his face. Seeing the almost ghostly smile on Makoto Takahashi's face, Yoshida, who had just sat down, suddenly felt deeply uneasy. Yoshida stretched his head and took a sneak peek, and found that what Makoto Takahashi was looking at was netizens' evaluation of this episode of Higurashi. Seeing that Makoto Takahashi did not stop him, Yoshida stood brightly behind Makoto Takahashi and started browsing with Makoto Takahashi. The more Yoshida looked at it, the uglier his face became. Although some people praised this chapter of Hansakata, more readers expressed their dissatisfaction with the ending of the Kongsha chapter. Cheng, I've told you before. Yoshida originally wanted to take the opportunity to educate Takahashi Makoto, but then he thought that saying this at this time might have a blow to Takahashi Makoto, so he suddenly changed his mind. He comforted himself by saying, "Don't pay too much attention to these comments. My beloved cat, let me ask you. Makoto Takahashi closed the computer and turned to look at Yoshida. What is guardianship? Guard, Makoto Takahashi asked, making Yoshida a little stunned. Seeing the serious expression on Makoto Takahashi's face, he didn't know how to answer for a moment. The so-called protection is to have a strong belief that you can do anything in order to protect someone or something. Makoto Takahashi tapped his fingers on the computer screen, with a disdainful smile on his face. The Chong killing chapter, the ending is just a trial. I am very disappointed with the reaction of the common people. After all, there are only a few people who have passed the trial of His Majesty the Demon King. Trial? Yoshida's head was full of black lines. The feeling of psychological depression that he felt when he saw the Kongsha chapter for the first time came up again, and his voice almost roared, "For Kiyaki, with such a cruel ending, is it a trial? Although it's just a matter of comics, I think a normal person should feel at least a little depressed after reading such a story, right? And as a creator, you should have more talents in your heart. Right? Normal person? My beloved is a cat, don't forget it." A disdainful smile appeared on Takahashi Makoto's face. "I am His Majesty the Demon King, a raging tyrant, the only one among the 5 elements in the 3 realms of heaven and earth. Overlord. Guardian. Demon King. Tyrant. Overlord." Yoshida's voice became louder and louder, and he was already furious with Takahashi Saichuji. "What we are talking about now is comics. Comics. Don't just ramble on and talk about a bunch of irrelevant things." Uncle Korea, who wanted to save Sakura and protect the smile of his beloved, escaped from the devil's place, gave up his life and pride for the existence called Guardian, and returned to the war again, carrying a burden that he should not have shouldered. Fate, and even lost his life. This awareness is the greatness of guardianship. The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face gradually disappeared, and he covered his heart with his hands, with inexplicable sadness on his face. This is what the dark hero wants. The emotions and fate I carry. My heart is crying when I see Kiyaki, who has just gained this consciousness, unable to be accepted by the world. If I can't understand Kiyaki's behavior, if I can't understand the true meaning of guardianship, I won't understand Yan. Readers who can't pass the test due to what Uncle Ye did, don't deserve to see that story at all. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 102. At the airport, Takahashi Makoto held Rina's hand tightly and looked at Ogata Ag in front of him with an angry expression. "Listen up, Ogata Slime Leader." Makoto Takahashi looked at Ogata Ag unhappily, his tone completely full of disdain. "During the time when Princess Rina is out on tour, I will temporarily leave it to Saba. Si-chan is here to protect you. Even if you are the leader of slimes, you cannot act rudely to my princess." Humph. Rina is my sister. And studying at the Vienna Conservatory of Music has already been arranged. Ogata Ag also had a very ugly expression on his face. He stared at Sabas, who was smiling, and looked up and down. His eyes were full of doubts. Would you rather leave Rina to an outsider to protect you than trust her brother? Brother? Hearing Ogata Ag say this, Takahashi Makoto seemed to have heard a big joke. Don't laugh to death. Did he think that after evolving into a slime leader, he thought he had the ability to resist? Is the Demon King strong enough? Huh, if it weren't for the tense war here, do you think the great Demon King would let you go and run away with the princess blatantly? Oh, wow. Rina, it's almost time. Ogata Ag looked at his watch, completely ignoring Takahashi Makoto's mantra's spiritual attack, but looked at Rina, who looked reluctant to leave, and let out a long sigh. Forget it, I'd better go there first. Has the troublesome guy finally learned how to analyze the atmosphere? Huh, it's rare for a mere slime leader, right? Makoto Takahashi looked at Ogata Ag disappearing into the sea of people and restrained his thoughts. With the thought of drawing out his sword to kill that figure, he turned around and looked at Rina, whose eyes were a little red. The expression on his face softened, and he reached out and gently wiped away Rina's tears. "My princess, please don't shed tears." But Rina's body began to tremble. "But Rina, she has to study in Vienna for 3 years. In order to increase your magic power, you must be promoted to a magister and study in Academy City." Makoto Takahashi hugged Rina into his arms and gently stroked Rina's long hair. "If you want to become a person who can resist His Highness the Demon King, being a mere princess is not enough, you need to be promoted to become a black magician girl, so that you can have a chance to escape from the clutches of His Highness the Demon King. But don't forget, the Demon King can also be promoted to become a demon god, a creator god, and the king of the end of the world." And Rina looked at Makoto Takahashi in confusion, and the expectation on her face turned into anger. It's this time, wouldn't she try to persuade her to stay? The result was still the same as usual, saying incomprehensible words. "And it's just a city academy, can it stop His Majesty the Demon King's invasion?" Makoto Takahashi showed an arrogant smile. "Superpowers, the Hanged Man, etc., are just a bunch of bastards in front of the Demon King. My princess, after you complete the ultimate test of saving the music scene in Central Continent, Her Majesty the Demon King will lead the 3 legions of evil, extreme evil and disaster, gathering the power of the world in the 4 eras. With 7 classes his servants will capture you and imprison you in the Demon King's castle, so you can take advantage of this time and enjoy this last joy." Makoto Takahashi's increasingly exaggerated laughter made many passers-by in the airport pause, and the inherent barrier onlooker and Makoto was activated. The more Rina listened, the angrier she became. With people around her pointing fingers and talking in low voices, she finally exploded. Rina suddenly pushed Takahashi Makoto away, turned around and entered the security check channel as if to run away. Like a frightened little sheep, keep running away. But don't forget. Makoto Takahashi's laughter gradually stopped, but the smile on his face did not disappear. "Sabas-chan, what happens next? I leave it to you, this is an order." "I understand, young master." Sebastian smiled, bowed slightly, raised the salute in his hand, and walked forward leisurely. When Sebastian passed by Takahashi Makoto, he said softly, "Master, at this time, it's not the right time to say no road race. No road race. No road race." Makoto Takahashi turned his head, raised his hand and shook it, as if saying goodbye, but the words he said were full of threats. "Don't, what a troublesome thing, Sabas-chan." "Hey, I know." Sebastian shook his head helplessly, with a charming smile on his face, and murmured softly, "I don't want Miss Rina to travel far away carrying the sadness of separation, so did you do this on purpose? The dishonest young master is really farewell." What an extremely annoying existence. Makoto Takahashi stood under the airport, looking at the plane piercing the sky. A trace of bitterness flashed across his face. After pondering for a long time, Takahashi Makoto gently rubbed his face, and began to make the famous and complicated hand seals. He muttered words, "The heart is made of glass, and as an immortal body, in the country of Great Void on the other side of Sinai, I am the Demon King. Named Yin, the devil, heaven and earth, constructing false good and spreading real evil, the chaos seal is released, and the personality is replaced." Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Passengers passing by the airport saw a one-eyed boy covering half of his cheek and looking up to the sky laughing wildly. The expression on the young man's face was very strange. He was laughing furiously, but his eyes were filled with tears. Many travelers stopped curiously and looked at this almost crazy young man. Some even took out their mobile phones to take pictures of the young man. "From now on, there is no restriction on my existence." The boy suddenly stopped his crazy behavior, took out a white coat from his backpack, and put it on in a very cool way. On the back of the white coat was written "The King of Demon Overlords." Just like a world-destroying demon king, he shouted loudly, "Despair, depravity, the whole world. Tremble, fear, all human beings. My ultimate form, Phoenix Court Takahashi Makoto, is coming at this moment. Oh my god, why is this middle school manga artist appearing so frequently recently? Yang Wei, who came to the airport to see off his friend, also saw Takahashi Makoto's middle school crazy performance in the crowd, and immediately black lines appeared on his head. After watching for a while, he quietly turned around and left. The next day, when Lee Binjian and other assistants came to Takahashi Makoto's house, they looked at the scattered comics on the ground and fell into a state of petrification. Hey, this, what's going on? Lee Binjian and Ding Ding looked at Takahashi Makoto, who seemed to be still painting, and asked the doubts in their hearts. I had already completed a lot yesterday, but why are there so many now? Have you seen it? Yes, this is the ultimate form of me, one of the strongest secrets, the state of no self. Takahashi Makoto's brush did not stop at all. He dipped the tip of the brush into ink and continued to paint on the paper. There was no extra movement at all. Even speaking did not interrupt the painting process. To activate this skill, you must first release the sealed personality and become the ultimate form. Then continue. Aiken, let's not talk about this for now. You need to rest well now. Ding Ding interrupted Takahashi Makoto's words and stepped forward to take away Takahashi Makoto's brush. However, as expected, in the weird smile of Takahashi Makoto, he was blocked by the guardian beast Black Cat and White Dog. Looking at the malicious smile on Takahashi Makoto's face, all the assistants focused their eyes on Lee Binjian. Lee Binjian has been in the studio for the longest time, and now he is the senior of Takahashi Makoto. Although he is a little bit of a middle school student, he is still quite considerate of this junior brother. Although Lee Binjian is also quite uneasy about Takahashi Makoto in this state, before Sebastian left, he had explained some things to Lee Binjian, such as what to do in this situation. That, Chang, Lee Binjian walked behind Takahashi Makoto tremblingly, his face a little pale, looking at Li Yulai, who was acting cute, and Ding Chun, who was yawning, stammering, "You do this, humph. Don't know what to do. Don't think that you can deal with me just because you have learned a little bit from Sebastian Chan." Without Takahashi Makoto's instructions, Ding Chun had already thrown Lee Binjian to the ground, and Li Yulai gracefully jumped on Lee Binjian, raised her cat paw, and shook it in front of Lee Binjian as if to demonstrate. The entertainment ends here. Li Yulai, come back. Ding Chun, the rest is up to you, you know. With Takahashi Makoto's order, the black cat Li Yulai jumped back behind Takahashi Makoto and lay softly on the ground, while Ding Chun called out to the assistants, who were still in shock, and then began to distribute the comics that needed to be completed. Hey, although it's not the first time I've seen it. The female assistant next to her gently pulled Ueno Aoi beside her, but how did Sadaharu do it? Everyone's job is different, but... Shut up. Ueno Aoi looked at Takahashi Makoto carefully and signaled him to speak in a low voice. Maybe it's because of Miss Rina, I can feel that the teacher is in a bad mood today. At this time, just do your job honestly. As for Sadaharu... Haha, that's not an ordinary dog. Have you ever seen a dog that can open the door to welcome guests on its own? That dog can be considered a monster. According to Nakasu, it has been cultivated into a spirit, right? Oh, by the way, Ruri is the same. You actually raise cat monsters and dog monsters. The female assistant looked at Takahashi Makoto in surprise, with a look of admiration on her face. Teacher Feng Guangai Yuan, you are really bold. Oh, there is one more thing to say. Takahashi Makoto finally stopped painting, turned around, and looked at the three people headed by Ding Ding. Because I have completed the storyboards related to Higurashi, from today on, you will only need to complete the rest of the work. What are these comics? Ding Ding picked up a drawing from the ground, with a curious look on his face. What's the matter with this female student in school uniform? And she is holding a longbow in her hand. Is she from the archery club? Is the new work going to draw a competitive comic? Little ding ding, curiosity can kill the cat. Takahashi Makoto showed a strange smile on his face. That woman, like me, also raised a dog monster. But unlike Sadaharu, Sadaharu is a household dog monster, and the one raised by that woman is a combat dog monster. As for the name, let's call it Dog, Inuyasha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Male. Chapter 103. Is this the manga that you said started the era of monsters? Yoshida looked at the manga manuscript in his hand with a strange look on his face. Although I was curious before, what kind of era of monsters will you create, but for these the storyboard of Inuyasha made me a little bit. That's because you opened it the wrong way, my beloved cat. Makoto Takahashi rarely stopped painting and explained to Yoshida seriously. The background of the story of Inuyasha is set in the Warring States period. It mainly tells the story of Inuyasha, a half-demon hybrid of humans and monsters, and his journey through time and space to the beginning of the Warring States period 500 years ago through the bone-eating well of his own shrine. The three girls, Kagome and Twilight, embarked on an adventure to find the fragments of the Four Souls Jade scattered everywhere. This is the main line, and it is also the storyboard you are holding in your hands now, but this does not mean that the entire film this is where comics started. You actually said this is not the beginning. Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi in surprise. After carefully checking the manga manuscript, he frowned. In my opinion, this opening is enough. And this kind of adventure-themed comics have now become the mainstream of Shonen Jump, so there is probably no problem with serialization, but it is precisely because of this that it will be quite difficult to achieve good results. What's the point? Makoto Takahashi looked at the fashion points without any care, with a disdainful smile. My dependent cat, it seems you still don't understand. Then let me ask you, except for people in this world like me, basically no one in the world can see monsters, or they think monsters don't exist. Do you know why? Have no idea. Yoshida shook his head frankly and looked at Makoto Takahashi speechlessly. Do monsters really exist in this world? Yoshida's eyes were full of doubts. At this age, the only one who still believes in the existence of monsters, apart from the mentally ill, is the Chiyunibu patient in front of him, right? Alas! How pitiful are the ignorant people who have forgotten the distorted and tampered history of the world. Makoto Takahashi suddenly looked up to the sky and sighed, with a look of pity on his face. Human beings are a bunch of ignorant people after all. A big creature? If this continues, it will eventually destroy the world and destroy itself. But let's just let everything return to chaos. Let's not talk about your pitiful expression. Yoshida pulled Takahashi's mouth with black lines on his head. Do you really want to destroy the world? Also, aren't you a human being? Let me tell you, it's happened so many times. Don't complain about human nature. Don't abandon your identity as a human being. What we are talking about now is the era of monsters, and it is Inuyasha. Ugh! Makoto Takahashi rubbed the corners of his sore mouth and turned his head away in displeasure. Monsters have always existed, but today's society is dominated by inferior creatures like humans. No matter how powerful the monsters are, they will not be able to face them. Facing humans who far outnumber them, the monsters can only compromise and hide in the other world. That's a good idea. It sounds like an interesting setting. Yoshida pondered for a moment and then praised him. At the same time, he looked at Makoto Takahashi with some surprise. This kind of unconstrained imagination is worthy of being called a monster manga by the editorial department. The Phoenix Courtyard at home is really fierce. Keep talking. In the beginning, monsters dominated everything, and humans were just ants. No, not even ants. In the eyes of monsters, humans are inexhaustible food, and they can be used when they are happy or angry. Is there such a thing as killing at will? Makoto Takahashi watched Yashida's face become solemn, with a proud smile on his face. Pure monsters, because they are too powerful, fall into killing each other. The law of the jungle is the only law in the monster world. It is precisely because of this that the monsters are on the verge of extinction. Chang, wait, Yashida interrupted Takahashi. Chang frowned and looked at the comic manuscript in his hand, looking at Takahashi Chang with confusion on his face. What you just said is a very good idea. It's a creative idea, but it doesn't seem to have much to do with your Inuyasha. Mortal wisdom, how many times have I used this taunting skill on you? My beloved cat, can't you improve your IQ a little bit? Takahashi Makoto responded to Yashida's interruption of his words. Very unhappy, after some ridicule, he continued the topic. In the past, humans were afraid of monsters and avoided monsters, but now, it is the other way around. Monsters avoid humans everywhere. Monsters from their dominant position, turned into an existence hidden in the darkness. However, humans have changed from weak to rulers. This process of change is the so-called era of monsters. Let me sort out my thoughts first. Yashida listened to Takahashi Makoto's words. Although he couldn't fully understand them, he still understood the general meaning. It's just that the amount of information was slightly large for a while, which made Yashida a little confused. Forget it. You'll be trapped in endless confusion. The true teachings of the white-faced demon Wiseman, the dimensional purgatory is launched. Takahashi Makoto showed a sly smile on his face, and continued to invade Yashida with information. Inuyasha is not only to meet the challenge of Ayam, but also has a more special meaning. Shimaru is the representative of pure monsters, that is, the representative of the orthodox monsters mentioned earlier, and because of his half-monster identity, Inuyasha is not accepted by both humans and monsters, but at the same time, because of his mixed blood, he has become a bridge for communication between monsters and humans. And Kagam's existence, because she comes from the later generations with more advanced education, cannot hate the existence of monsters, complete the integration plan of humans and monsters, humans and monsters, and realize the coexistence of humans and monsters. This is the beginning of the entire monster era. It's completely chaotic. Yashida held his head and was successfully defeated by Takahashi Makoto's infinite light ghost slash. In the comic Inuyasha, monsters are still in a strong position, and humans are still weak. This is the beginning of the monster era. In the second comic, humans have gradually become stronger. The civil war between monsters and the existence of Onmyoji have gradually made the monster era, which was once strong, enter a period of decline. Facing the powerful humans, the monsters who want to protect themselves can only divide the territory and hide in human society. As for the end of the monster era, in addition to hostility between humans and monsters, the increase of friendship and love also makes the earlier plan to complete humans and monsters finally complete. After Takahashi Makoto told the plan in his mind, he looked at Yashida, who was stunned and showed a proud smile on his face. This is the true form of the monster era. Very, very good and powerful concept. This time, while praising, Yashida also showed a look of surprise in his eyes. The more Yashida listened to Takahashi Makoto's subsequent explanation, the more shocked he was. The monster era planned by Takahashi Makoto was just a simple narration, and the worldview displayed would require at least 3 comics to complete. Yashida didn't forget that Makoto Takahashi had said before that the monster era was only the first of 4 eras. The monster era alone was enough to shock Yashida. What would the next 3 eras be like? My cat, looking at your stupid expression, do you finally understand? Makoto Takahashi still mocked Yashida with a disdainful tone. It's so sweet. What I just said is just the beginning of my blueprint. The beginning of the blueprint. Yashida, who was still immersed in surprise, knelt down when he heard Makoto Takahashi say this. From the construction of the era, to form a unique worldview. Makoto Takahashi suddenly realized something and didn't continue to talk. Instead, he picked up a few comic manuscripts from the table and handed them to Yoshida. Forget it, now is not the time for you to get in touch with the roots. Well, the real Inuyasha must never forget this monster. Yoshida, who was full of doubts, wanted to know Makoto Takahashi's plan, but he was also very curious about the real beginning of Inuyasha. Yoshida listened to what Takahashi Makoto said, took the comic draft and looked at it carefully. To Yoshida's surprise, what Takahashi Makoto gave him was not a comic storyboard, but the image of the character. The first chapter of the drawing he got was a character that looked like a middle-aged uncle. The reason why it was called a suspected character was that this character, in addition to having a pair of relatively pointed ears, also had a very elegant temperament, with 3 swords on his waist, and he looked like an extraordinary person at first glance. The name of this character was noted next to it, Inu Taisho. Inu Taisho, this should be Inuyasha's father. Yoshida recalled what Takahashi Makoto had said before, and a look of realization appeared on his face. I see. Inuyasha is a half-demon of human and monster, that is to say, Inuyasha was born when Inu no Taisho and humans combined. Is this the beginning of the communication between humans and monsters as you mentioned before? This character is, the first generation General Nuranura. Chen, this character seems. The style is different, right? Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida's puzzled face and smiled, of course. Because Nuranura is a character in another comic. As the Demon King, wouldn't I notice such a small thing? But this Nuranura's smile. Yoshida looked at Nuranura with a sword on his shoulder and felt a little weird. He was obviously a very handsome monster character, but Yoshida's intuition told him that this character would definitely become a headache like Takahashi Makoto. Anyway, this is basically the situation. Just when Yoshida was about to say something, Takahashi Makoto suddenly snatched back a few drawings. Although I can't tell you the specific ideas in detail, my beloved cat, you should have understood it now, right? Well, Inuyasha is just the beginning. Although Yoshida said this, he still frowned and looked at Takahashi Makoto. But Chen, why didn't you tell me about this plan when you were in the editorial department before? Humph. Words are not enough. If you don't come up with something, do you think everything I say will be accepted by others? Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida sympathetically. My beloved cat, in this world full of monsters, it's really not easy for you who are so innocent and kind to survive until now. You have worked hard all these years. That's right, especially facing a monster like you. I've had a hard time these years. Yoshida looked at Takahashi Makoto, who was teasing Ruri and Sadaharu, and after complaining helplessly, he took the drawings of Full Metal Alchemist and Higurashi and got up and left. Takahashi Makoto successfully brainwashed Yoshida, increasing Yoshida's confidence in the serialization of Inuyasha. Yoshida's impression of Takahashi Makoto changed from a Chuyunibu patient to a Chuyunibu monster. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 104. Searched Kan on Google. Hey, Akin, I just got some good or bad news. Yoshida spoke softly on the phone, his tone completely full of hesitation, and he hesitated for a long time without saying anything. Seems like a hard thing to tell. After Makoto Takahashi was silent for a moment, he hung up the phone decisively and educated Sadaharu, who was lying at his feet. Sadaharu, when a man does something, he must not hesitate, otherwise he will end up with my companion is like a cat, destined to live alone. The so-called reserve only exists in rare species like eldest ladies, but for men, it is a barrier that must be broken. Emotions such as deception, concealment, and shyness must be eliminated. Rounding. Although I really want to ask Chen, is it really okay for you to educate dogs like this? Lee Byungyan looked at Takahashi Cheng helplessly, with black lines on his head. But Cheng, why do you keep staring when you are talking? Are you looking at me? The omniscient Demon King is in the sky, overlooking everything in the world. Makoto Takahashi looked at Lee Byungyan meaningfully. Trying to deceive the Demon King will lead to endless disasters and inescapable disaster. Brother Muse, when we go on a date next time, you understand what you said. After Lee Byungyan was silent for a moment, his face turned red due to shyness, and he looked at Cheng Takahashi unnaturally. Cheng, when did you know about it? This was a long time ago. When Takahashi Makoto was trying to tell an ancient story, Yoshida called again. Makoto Takahashi tried to ignore Yoshida's call, but the phone kept ringing, and it had a tendency to explode without answering the phone. Makoto Takahashi spread his hands helplessly, made a vague gesture to Lee Byungyan, then walked to the balcony and answered the phone. Huh? Release a special issue? Will this kind of thing happen again? Makoto Takahashi listened to Yoshida's words, with a look of displeasure on his face. My familiar cat, have you forgotten that the same moves are used against the Saint Seiya is ineffective? And now I am in the first step of forging the magic sword. I don't have time to attend any parties. If I want to complete the magic sword that can kill gods, it is impossible to stop in the middle of the forging. It's just a short comic, it shouldn't take up too much time, right? Yoshida tried his best to persuade Takahashi Makoto on the phone. The editor-in-chief has said that he hopes you can participate in this event. Although he didn't say it explicitly, but I think if you, Cheng, participate in this event, maybe the serialization of Inuyasha can be moved forward, right? Inuyasha will be serialized after Higurashi is completed. This matter cannot be changed, Makoto Takahashi slowly explained to the phone. Although I also want to serialize Inuyasha as soon as possible, but now is not the time. You have to eat one bite at a time, and of course you have to whip Yoshida one at a time. To hold such an event suddenly, I guess that's what happened this time. The theme of the special event should be to promote beautiful feelings such as family love. It's really a hypocritical and despicable temptation. Why do you know, Cheng? Faced with Takahashi Cheng's mocking words, Yoshida's voice sounded a little guilty. You know this, from Aiken Mumenjai, right? Hey. The restless undead are roaring and roaring, making me unable to sleep every day. Holding this special event. Takahashi Makoto's words were like a sword piercing the soul, making Yoshida on the phone feel uneasy. Is it really because of the resentment of the Kongsha chapter? Regarding the ending where everyone was wiped out, the commander must have collected a lot of negative energy and started to transform into the Lich King? Humph. But if he wants to challenge the Demon King, it's not that ignorant. Yoshida was speechless, and when he was about to hang up the phone, he heard Takahashi Makoto's furious declaration. Humph. Such hasty actions are not the usual style of the commander. As for the specific reasons, I will kindly not ask further. But as a duelist, I will not run away from any duel. Takahashi Cheng sneered. You want me to participate? Yes, absolutely. But are you ready over there? Once the dark game begins, it cannot end until the winner is determined. The winner can escape all dangers, while the loser, you will lose your soul and be completely sealed in the endless darkness. So, Cheng, have you thought about what you want to draw for this event? Yoshida kindly told Takahashi Makoto about the theme of the event, and tried to give psychological hints to Takahashi, because the theme is limited to family and affection aspects, so it's better to have something more realistic. Of course I know this kind of thing. After a moment of silence, Takahashi Makoto showed a melancholy expression on his face and sighed, alas. The cruelty of reality, the beauty of fantasy, intertwined worlds, intertwined trajectories. Even though we know that hope is closely followed by despair, human beings still chase and yearn for it at all costs. is it because the fantasy is too beautiful and makes human beings look forward to it too much, so they choose to forget the cruelty of the world? Creatures are really sad existences. But let's let those who try to provoke others realize for themselves that the so-called truth is to give arrogant humans appropriate despair. Cheng is this guy. When Yoshida was about to say something else, Takahashi Makoto hung up the phone. Looking at the phone hung up by Makoto Takahashi, Yoshida looked a little worried. It's exactly what the editor said. Have you guessed the meaning of this event? The ending of the Kongsha chapter is inconsistent with the theme that Boyan Jump has always adhered to, causing many readers to call the editorial department to complain. Regarding this, the editor-in-chief and other editors who have seen some of the follow-up parts of Hansakaden know that everything is just a foreshadowing. The real theme of Hansakata is to show the good, evil, and ugly beauty of human nature through different worlds. Friends who firmly believe in the bonds of friendship finally work together to get rid of the control of fate. It conveys that people must learn to trust friends and learn to talk and learn the works of rationality and positive energy. But for those who have not watched the follow-up to Higurashi, the ending of the Kongsha chapter is really hard to accept. Just like Takahashi Makoto said, because reality is too cruel, that's why we have longing and expectations for the fictional comic book world. If something is not satisfactory at all, we will start to feel conflicted. This special event was held suddenly after the end of the Kongsha arc, and the scope and theme were very narrow. Takahashi Makoto could detect this unreasonable event. The reason why Takahashi Makoto participated in this event was because he ran away without fighting in the face of provocation. This is something that the pride of a demon king and the self-respect of a duelist cannot allow. But talking about temptations and the like is just pure paranoia. The inherent manifestations of the second grade are full of hostility towards the entire world and strong paranoia of being persecuted. The seemingly careless actions of others are regarded as temptations and provocations to oneself. Do you have to compromise because of some unexpected oppression? A soulless puppet is really a boring existence, Makoto Takahashi sneered and muttered to himself. I have made it very clear in the program before, comics are just entertainment. If you have to use things like fantasy masters to enhance the style and level of comics, is it inevitable that the brain will collapse? Besides Koizumi, there are still remnants of the cult. If you want to pursue the truth stubbornly, let us have a good time this time. In the editorial department of Yorongshi, the editor-in-chief looked a little ugly. His brows were furrowed, and he fell into a long state of meditation. After Yoshida made the call, he came to the editor-in-chief without saying a word, but the expression on his face was full of sorrow. How's it going with Makoto Takahashi? The editor-in-chief didn't raise his head, but asked Yoshida coldly. You should have agreed, right? I promised, but the editor-in-chief. After Yoshida hesitated for a moment, he still asked the biggest doubt in his heart, what exactly is this event? This is a proposal from the board of directors, and we can only be responsible for its implementation. There have been some changes in the board of directors recently, and the people who proposed this event are some new members who have joined the board of directors. The editor-in-chief did not explain too much, but just casually said a few words. The original words are, some comics are too bloody and violent, and the themes are too dark, making many readers forget the original harmony and love between people. The reason why this event was launched, I hope that more cartoonists will draw more works that can express the beautiful feelings between people. Comics are not only a form of entertainment, but also have a very special educational significance, so it is best not to appear some. It's a dark story, just praise some good people and things and have a happy ending. Comics that are violent and bloody, with dark themes, shouldn't they refer to Aiken? Yoshida frowned tightly, with a look of anger and unwillingness on his face. Also, depicting the beautiful feelings between people, comics with happy endings, these statements are simply nonsense. I see, the reason why the theme of family affection is limited is. Yoshida, don't question the decisions of the superiors casually. A faint smile appeared on the editor's face. You'd better talk to Makoto Takahashi about these words. I think he will definitely create an interesting comic. Tell Aiken, I know, editor-in-chief. Yoshida was still very angry just now. After understanding the editor-in-chief's voiceover, he now had the same expectant smile. I also want to know, Aiken knows about this. What kind of comics will you draw after that? No matter whether the final ending is sad or happy, as long as the comics are interesting. The editor-in-chief looked at Yoshida leaving with a smile on his face. Since you don't understand comics, don't point fingers. Like life, comics have joy and joy. It's sad, that's why it's interesting. The pursuit of a perfect ending in comics is the most boring thing in the world, just like the pursuit of a perfect life. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 105. Humph. It turns out that's what happened. After listening to Yoshida's story, Takahashi Makoto showed a real expression on his face. Humph. It turns out that the opponents this time are just some over-the-top bastards. What a boring existence. Fortunately, I prepared that masterpiece before. I can kill 10 of them without a masterpiece. Chen, is what you are holding the manga that you call a masterpiece? Yoshida noticed the manga manuscript in Takahashi Makoto's hand. Although there was a look of curiosity on his face, due to the absolute gap in force, Yoshida did not dare to reach out and snatch the comics from Takahashi Makoto, so he could only flatter Takahashi and launch a mental attack on him. Since you can become the existence of a masterpiece, it must be very amazing, right? Can I? No, Makoto Takahashi interrupted Yoshida's words directly. Under Yoshida's surprised and curious eyes, he placed the manga manuscript in his hand on Sadaharu's dog's head. Ding-chun, the decision is yours. Take advantage of your opponent's weakness and decide the outcome with one strike. You know what to do. Woof, Sadaharu shouted, and then used a complicated trick to hold the manga manuscript on his head in his mouth. Before Yoshida could react, he quickly put the manga manuscript into the shredder. This series of actions was completed in the blink of an eye. Yoshida's rhythm was obviously more than half a beat slower. He sensed something was wrong and just stood up to stop Sadaharu's behavior, but it was already too late. Witnessing everything that happened in the flash of lightning, Yoshida screamed in pain and tried to stop the shredder, but it was too late. Listening to the sound of the comic manuscript being rolled into pieces in the shredder, Yoshida's heart was bleeding. He turned to look at Makoto Takahashi, his angry eyes locked on the target, his livid face and trembling body, suspicious. The skill dragon's fury is being charged. Hey! Is the true form of my beloved cat the Magi-Carp? In anger, he evolved into a Gyarados, charged up and used Dragon's Wrath in the animated version. The power is exactly the same as reverse scale in the game. It exists. Tisk tisk tisk, it's scary. Although Takahashi Makoto said this, there was no fear on his face. Okay, let's stop the joke, my beloved cat, let's talk how about a life of harmony and love. Do humans and demons have to hurt each other when they fight and kill each other all day long? Master Santang and his disciples, who have worked so hard to obtain the Western Sutra, look like you are full of anger and ready to use your special attack. I will cry after seeing it, I will really cry. I've tolerated you for a long time, Makoto Takahashi. Yoshida activated his skills, and in the roaring state, the power was superimposed. It's really rude to use the roaring skill on someone who is imagining a new manga. Phoenix in Ojima complained to Yoshida with a serious look on his face. Makoto Takahashi suddenly entered Misaka mode, without any expression on his face. He looked at Yoshida with a calm face. Although the great demon king of the Phoenix Academy expressed his understanding for my familiar cat's act of provoking the demon king Phoenix Academy, he began to secretly implement the curse mantra in his heart. What's going on with this way of speaking? Yoshida was no longer able to complain. He was thinking about what Takahashi Makoto had said, and his eyes shone with anticipation. Chen, wait a minute, you said you were imagining a new manga? Now. For the suspicion and distrust of my beloved cats, the great demon king of the Phoenix Institute nodded his acquiescence with a look of contempt. Makoto Takahashi took out a notebook. The great demon king of the Phoenix Institute will now enter the drawing state, and I sincerely hope that I will. The familiar cat has entered a state of silence, don't disturb me. At the same time, the demon king of the Phoenix Academy, who pretended not to care about my familiar cat's actions before, already has a grudge in his heart and will take revenge in the future. After Yoshida watched Makoto Takahashi finish speaking, he drew quickly on his notebook. When the words came to his lips, he was forced to swallow them back. Yoshida stretched out his head several times to see what Makoto Takahashi was drawing, but Makoto Takahashi was very vigilant. In response to Yoshida's peeping behavior, he used the magic eye skill every time to restrict his movements. Yoshi. The mission is completed. An hour later, Takahashi Makoto stopped the brush in his hand and looked at Yoshida with a smile on his face. Although the masterpiece is not planned to be requisitioned for the time being, this work is completely fine now. And I have already understood the commander's previous instructions. Let this comic complete the transformation from killing to super god. The one who dominates the game will always be. Before Yoshida could wait for Makoto Takahashi to finish speaking, he couldn't wait to snatch the manga from Makoto Takahashi's hand. Yoshida, who was full of expectations, looked at the storyboard that looked like a simple drawing, and his jaw dropped to the table. Is this kind of thing really drawn by Makoto Takahashi? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi in disbelief, rubbed his eyes vigorously, looked at the storyboard again, and then covered his eyes, indicating that his pupils were destroyed. Oh, my beloved cat, this is the male protagonist. Makoto Takahashi felt that the blow was not enough, so he used the finishing blow again and handed over a drawing of the character. How do you feel? Do you feel very loved? The style of painting, the difference is too big. Yoshida glanced at the characters drawn by Makoto Takahashi, who had black lines all over their heads, and stammered, let's not talk about the plot of the story. Just based on this painting wind, for the current young junk, is completely superficial view. This kind of painting style is called returning to nature. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida with contempt. Even if you draw the simplest stick figures, you can still attract readers. This is the real cartoonist. But regarding the ending of this short story, I thought of a touching setting. Although the rumors are not credible, I was really moved when I saw the news. Ha 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 ha, this kid is really. Yoshida ignored Takahashi Makoto's settings for the ending, but looked at the storyboard carefully. Many dialogues and developments in the plot made Yoshida laugh out loud. After laughing heartily, Yoshida suddenly and strangely fell into deep thought. After a long time, he raised his head and looked at Makoto Takahashi. I didn't expect you, Chen, to be top-notch in drawing funny cartoons. But some of these, it seems a little inappropriate. This unruly dance like the elephant dance is really. Sure enough, you have a lot of criticism about this? Humph. I never thought that my beloved cats are also secular people. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida with a look of regret. The image of others in your mind is the image of you in the minds of others. Don't think about the innocence of childhood. This is the ordinary life of an ordinary family. This is the kind of daily life that can truly show family affection. Alas, in a state of superiority, it is really as lonely as snow. Okay. Let's not discuss the elephant dance issue for now. But for a child to have such a precocious personality, it's really. Yoshida looked at this child with a potato head, thick eyebrows and big eyes, with black lines all over his face, looked at Makoto Takahashi with some confusion. If I go by what you said before, then can I think that the author who drew such a comic actually has a devilish heart? Since I want to pursue family ties. Makoto Takahashi unnaturally turned his head away from Yoshida's comments and used his topic-changing skills. Then let those little bastards see what life is. Ignorant fantasies, let me teach them how to behave through this comic. This method of changing the subject is really inferior, Yoshida smiled. This was the first time he and Makoto Takahashi had the upper hand since they met. Yoshida, who was so carried away, seemed to have forgotten the principle that everything must be reversed, and continued to attack Takahashi. Makoto, what, you can't refute it? That's right, I didn't expect that this event actually exposed your evil heart, Chen. It's really unexpected harvest. Huh? My beloved, are you too complacent? Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida unhappily, with a strange sadness gradually appearing on his face. Isn't this comic funny? I wonder how you treat Zioxin, a mature brat. Has had a profound impact, right? The conditions are ripe, so let you experience for yourself the appropriate despair that the combination of illusion and reality gives you. There was a 5-year-old boy named Zioxin who died in a car accident while trying to protect his sister. His mother Nohara Mizu was sent to the hospital due to excessive grief and mental disorder. She thinks about it every day. Xiao Xian used her favorite crayon before she was born again to record every detail of Xiao Xian's life. Mei Ya often wrote in her notes, if Xiao Xian was still alive, he would be so happy. Takahashi. Chen looked at Yoshida, who was still immersed in laughter. His face slowly became serious, and his tone was full of sadness. Although I am not sure about the authenticity of the story, when I saw this story in my previous life, I was really shocked. So I decided to draw this story as the ending of this short story. Yoshida was smiling just now, but now he is becoming a little depressed. After a long silence, Yoshida raised his head and looked at Takahashi. Chen, you must have made up the story you told, right? You must have made it up, right? Obviously a child like Zioxin. Did you have this delusion because you couldn't accept it? Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida, his face slowly calmed down. The reason why I chose this comic to participate in this event is just to draw this story. As for catering to the ideas of those little bastards, humph. As a plagiarist, does the great demon king of the Phoenix Academy care about that? He really overestimates himself. But if the ending is really what you said. Yoshida looked at the storyboard again. The dialogues and plots that were obviously funny before are now filled with endless sadness. It's not only good for readers, but also for Zioxin. Okay, it's all too cruel. Cruel? While life is full of joy, it will also encounter unforgettable pain. Makoto Takahashi's face became sacred, like a priest who redeems everything. If the comics must be burdened with some inexplicable things, if it loses its original meaning, then I will turn the comic into the life you have been trying to master. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 106. On Friday, as usual, many viewers of Rebel stayed in front of the TV, ready to watch the new episode of Rebel. Although Takahashi Makoto complained about Taigasa, the cartoonist worked hard and spent a long time on the cartoon draft, and the animation was completed in more than 20 minutes. This is not an equal exchange at all. But Makoto Takahashi was very satisfied with the level of animation produced by Dehesha. Hey, what's going on? Lee Byungyan looked at Makoto Takahashi, who was standing in front of the TV with some surprise, and looked at the people around him with curiosity. Cheng was actually standing in front of the TV watching Rebellion. Isn't this really unscientific? Didn't Cheng say that he didn't feel anything after watching it again? The episode played today, if I remember correctly, it seems to be Charlie. Aoi Ueno glanced at Makoto Takahashi with an ugly face, and took a hard bite of food. I will be staying here today. there is nothing wrong with watching this episode in front of the TV. Let's not talk about Aiken's problem for now. Lee Byung-yin, Ding Ding and many other assistants looked at Weno Aoi in confusion. Weno-chan, what's going on with you today? Why do you seem to be very attached to Aiken, dissatisfied? Is it really because of that? Man, as expected, scum does exist. Weno Aoi slammed the bowl and chopsticks on the table, stared at Lee Byung-yin and Ding Ding fiercely, and turned to look at Makoto Takahashi, who was smiling over there, with a look of displeasure on his face. Makoto Takahashi, who seems to be so loyal, actually does such a heartbreaking thing. It's really hard to judge by appearance. He drew that kind of ending. He is not the devil of healing and love at all, but the culprit of evil. The true culprit of evil. Crazy devil. Lee Byung-jin and Ding Ding smiled bitterly, looking at Makoto Takahashi with a weird smile over there, shaking their heads and saying nothing. Is Weno Aoi's current performance really unacceptable because of the ending of Xioxin's death? After the completion of Crayon Shin-chan, which Makoto Takahashi will participate in previously, Aoi Weno and others, as assistants to the cartoonist, naturally took advantage of their status to have a sneak peek. Regarding the various unscrupulous dialogues that appear in the comics, Weno Aoi, a young girl who has never experienced anything in the world, laughs and feels a little embarrassed at the same time. In contrast, Lee Byung-yin and Ding Ding showed the exclusive smiles that are unique to men's private night chats, especially Ding Ding, who gave Takahashi Makoto a thumbs up from time to time. How do you say that? Well, fun times are always short-lived. When Weno Aoi saw that Xioxin died in a car accident in order to save her sister, she was shocked. With a trace of fantasy, Aoi Weno continued to read the comics. Xioxin had been confirmed to be dead. Her mother, Mia, was sent to the hospital due to a mental disorder due to the huge blow. The originally happy family was instantly destroyed by Makoto Takahashi. Shattered. Takahashi Makoto, what's going on? Weno Aoi usually calls Takahashi Makoto her teacher, not only because of Takahashi Makoto's talent in drawing comics, but also because Takahashi Makoto is her cooking teacher. And now he suddenly calls Takahashi Makoto by his first name, and with the angry expression on his face, you can imagine how angry Weno Aoi is, right? Why did Xioxin die? This style of painting is obviously a comedy, right? But what's going on with this kind of divine expansion? Such an ending, such an ending. While enjoying the joy, don't forget that life is actually a cruel existence. Makoto Takahashi did not feel afraid of Weno Aoi, whose anger level had reached the limit. Instead, he looked at Weno Aoi calmly. You can't do it because of joy, but unable to accept the painful ending. While giving happiness to human beings, give them appropriate despair, so as to let the ignorant world remember how cruel real life is. This is what the Demon King of Healing Love tells the ignorant world. The truth. Takahashi Makoto, if you don't change the ending, you will definitely arouse the resentment of readers. Weno Aoi tightly grasped the manga manuscript in her hand, looking unwilling to refute something, but in the middle of the second chapter, she used all her pressure. In front of Makoto Takahashi, Aoi Weno, whose fighting prowess is off the charts, is just a newborn baby with no ability to resist. Resent? Humph. In that case, let them continue to be resentful. Makoto Takahashi looked at Weno Aoi with an indifferent expression, and said in a rage, "Stupid mortals, holding endless resentment against the Demon King, are ugly and twisted. Go on with your life. Only when you reach the end of hatred can you understand what the so-called love is. Only when you reach the extreme of heartbreak, can you understand how warm healing is. Witnessing the miraculous Messiah, this is the path that every devil will take. But as a subordinate of the devil, you are unable to realize the responsibility that the devil bears. How embarrassing is this? What is the Demon King who heals love? What is the responsibility of the Demon King? Ha ha ha. Ueno Aoi has begun to enter the edge of collapse and blackening. A deep laughter slowly sounds. Ueno Aoi's eyes are gradually losing their luster, and her mouth is filled with tears. Stop repeating unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. In other words, I missed work out of frustration. Today is Ueno Aoi's first day back after skipping work. Seeing Makoto Takahashi, who still showed no remorse, Ueno Aoi was naturally full of resentment. Although the dark evolution was stopped due to some unknown influence, Ueno Aoi still held an irresistible hostility towards Makoto Takahashi. Takahashi Makoto didn't care about these at all, and looked at Rebellion with a smile on his face. For Takahashi Makoto, who wanted to destroy the Black Flame King, this special event was a complete delay. Takahashi Makoto, who believed that he could win in one battle, had to enter a delaying war. Don't you want to read a comic about family affection? Don't you want to seek healing and love? Well, then so be it. Let you slowly understand the essence of love and healing when the world returns to chaos. Struggle in the abyss of blood and darkness, suffer in the abyss of hatred and resentment. Takahashi Makoto seems to have embarked on the path of awakening the devil. This ending. Like Ueno Aoi, Yoshida also showed a painful look on his face when he saw this ending. Although he had heard Takahashi Makoto roughly say it before, after seeing Takahashi Makoto really draw it like this, Yoshida still felt very depressed. Looking at the smiling Takahashi Makoto, Yoshida sighed, his tone full of apology. Alas. Ah-Cheng, although Rina went to Vienna to study, and the sudden convening of this special event may make you feel uncomfortable, but you can't take revenge on society like this, right? Revenge on society? Humph. My cat, you know too much. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida with contempt. Since you are a demon king, you must carry out meaningful activities such as torturing humans to the end. That indescribable supreme pleasure is really delicious. Besides, the current Crayon Shin-chan is just the beginning. As the demon king who heals love, how could you give up such a meaningful activity? In order to satisfy the demon king's greedy pleasure, the whole world will sink into the abyss. Try to persuade Takahashi Makoto to embark on the path of the demon king. Yoshida and Ueno Aoi tried their best. After several battles, not only did they not get any results, but they strengthened Takahashi Makoto's determination. This result is really gratifying. The memory killing ends here, and the assistants who watched this episode of Rebellion together found that Yoshida's previous statement that Takahashi Makoto went astray was not wrong. Because Takahashi Makoto's reaction was too abnormal. Forget it. Just forget all the annoying things. In the animation, Lelouch hugged Shirley, with a serious look on his face, and a hint of sadness in his expression. I can't do it. Shirley, with tears in her eyes, shook her head vigorously. The fact that the person she deeply loved was the murderer of her father made this kind girl fall into endless confusion. How could such a thing be easily forgotten? Shirley, I'm sorry about your father. If I could start over, I would be kind to you. Lelouch's tone was full of apology, and the bird-like mark flashed a strange red in Lelouch's left eye. Lelouch, no, Shirley, who seemed to know what the result was, screamed out loud. Although the picture changed afterwards, the audience who had been watching Rebellion knew that Lelouch had modified Shirley's memory. Accompanied by sad music, the scene turned to the grave of Shirley's father again. Shirley looked at Lelouch. The conversation like a stranger made the audience depressed. Excuse me, have you lost your family too? No, not family, but friends. Yes, probably, very important. Lelouch's close-up, the sadness that could not be hidden on his face, the pain of losing his lover in his eyes, cast a heart-wrenching double combo on every audience. Really? Some things are not realized until after losing. I have been redeemed by her smile countless times. I can no longer quarrel like before, laugh together like before. Obviously the extremely sad fact, Lelouch said it in a plain tone. The endless sadness on the face of this proud prince made the audience who knew the cause and effect very depressed. You like that person very much, seeing Shirley asking Lelich like this. I don't know how many people shouted loudly in front of the TV, yes, Lelich likes you very much, Shirley. Now, I don't know anymore. The dawn will definitely come. As for me, although I have forgotten why I came here, perhaps, I just want to put an end to something. Although I do have many unforgettable things and sad memories, however, the dawn will eventually come. So don't force yourself to suppress yourself. Even if she lost her memory, Shirley still showed a smile of redemption on her face. Although many viewers have seen such a scene in the comics, it still made many people cry with the interlude. That's right, I think so too. Thank you all the time. Lelich showed a faint smile on his face and turned away. The Demon King is also a lonely existence. Even when he smiled, it was just a forced smile. Just like what Mr. Yoshida said, when Aoi turned her head away with tears in her eyes and stared at Takahashi Makoto with hatred. Looking at such a story, I'm afraid only you who have a broken personality and are insane can still laugh at this time. The practice of revenge against society for a broken heart is quite childish. And you can't be considered a broken heart, right? Although I think your words are a little inaccurate, Ueno-chan, but Lee Binjian also had a sour nose. After gently wiping the corners of his eyes, he looked at Takahashi Makoto with suspicion, just as Ueno-chan said, even though you are the original author of the comic, you are still laughing with this song and this plot. Sure enough, because then should I cry? The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face gradually disappeared. Looking at a group of puzzled assistants, he said to himself, I have cried. In my previous life, I had a low tear point, and I have no tears anymore. And some things can't be relieved by crying. It seems that Rina's study in Vienna is the culprit that caused Aiken to become like this. What Yoshida said privately to his assistants before was finally recognized by his assistants. And Takahashi Makoto's next words confirmed Yoshida's statement. You can't forget your love just by crying. As the devil who heals love, I already have this realization. Takahashi Makoto played with his phone. There was no sadness in his tone, and he was still very proud. So if you want to become the devil's capable assistant, you still have a long way to go. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 107. Regardless of Makoto Takahashi's reasons, Crayon Shin-chan was transformed into a tragedy. With all kinds of curses and resentments of Ueno Aoi and Yoshida, and with the unscrupulous and funny development at the beginning, it successfully blended into a story called Family Love among the special event teams. Although Crayon Shin-chan unfolds as a unit drama, the plot of the original work is very long. If it wants to be a short comic, most of it must be cut out. The biggest charm of Xioxin is that he looks at the world with the innocent eyes of a child and a little irony. Things that may seem ordinary to adults turn into hilarious things from Xioxin's mouth. This is also an important reason why people love Xioxin. Makoto Takahashi has selected some articles involving such topics. Of course, there are also content involving family ties. Although Xioxin is usually a bit naughty, he still cares about his family very much. For example, once Xioxin saw his mother Maya vomiting blood. In fact, she just choked on the tomato juice. However, Xioxin thought that her mother was terminally ill, so she became very obedient and took the initiative to put away toys and so on. Some people may think this is a small thing, but compared with Xioxin who was causing trouble all day long, Xioxin suddenly became sensible. This kind of existence called contrasting cuteness is the most touching thing in people's hearts. A weak spot. Searched can on Google. The previous broadcast of Rebellion also caused some fluctuations, especially among some emotional girls. They were extremely sad to see the unfolding of Lelich and Charlie's relationship. The internet has already commented on the ferocity of the Phoenix Institute. The great voyage towards the Demon King has begun. So when the special issue of Shonen Jump was released and they saw the fierce name of the Phoenix Institute, many readers were curious to buy and watch this work that was labeled by the Phoenix Institute as a crossed fantasy healing system, that is, the short story Crayon Shin-chan published specially for this event, and then, of course, then, he was tricked and killed without any surprise. When many people saw the painting style of Crayon Shin-chan, they couldn't help complaining that the painting style was crude. Many readers even looked at the author's column with confusion. After confirming that the author was indeed the Phoenix Academy murderer, they covered their heads. Face turned up, caught in a tangle. Let's not talk about the content. Compared with previous works, the style of this comic is completely immersed in a mysterious and weird style. The painting style of this newly published comic is affected by the sustainable magic card pain of the strong, and the attack power has plummeted. Compared with the previous Phoenix Academy's fierce comics, it is not at the same level. Keikenhua is not a fan of Phoenix Academy's fierceness. This girl who is studying in college does not really like reading comics, but likes watching animations. In Keikenhua's view, even though the animation is based on comics, compared to the pictures and text narratives in comics, animations have music and sounds, smoothness and so on, making it easier to accept. Recently, Keikenhua has been obsessed with Rebellion, and she is another girl captured by His Highness Lelich. Although some people on the internet complained that the body proportions of the characters in Lelich were a bit exaggerated, Keikenhua didn't care. The Lelich Support Club exists not only in anime, but also in reality. And Keikenhua is one of them, and she is also a Cotter-level person in the support association. As for buying Jump today, Keikenhua is just helping her roommate buy it. Because her roommate was out on business, Keikenhua had nothing to do. She picked up the comic in her hand and started reading it on the pretext of killing boring time. Although I had already known that Phoenix Academy murderer was the author of Rebellion, looking at Crayon Shin-chan with such a simple style of painting, Keikenhua still felt helpless to complain. Just as she watched, Keikenhua was gradually attracted. Ha 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 ha, this kid is really precocious. Fortunately, my brother is not like this, otherwise. Keikenhua looked at Xioxin's various dialogues that made people laugh, and she laughed so much that she remembered that she still Keikenhua couldn't help but tremble after her younger brother, who was in kindergarten, thought about it and replaced her younger brother with a top performer like Xioxin. Having a family like this will definitely give you a headache. This scene is really full of love. Although most of Xioxin's stories are funny, there are also touching parts. Keikenhua took a break, put down the comic in his hand, and lay on the bed recalling the plot of the comic, but this child is really, although he has been educated by his mother, when he saw it was raining outside, he ran over to give him an umbrella. Surprisingly sensible. Right? Phoenix Institute's works are very interesting, aren't they? Although I haven't finished watching Crayon Shin-chan yet, I just watched the beginning and I fell in love with this naughty child. My roommate, looking at Keikenhua lying on the bed, strongly recommended. Phoenix Academy Dada is not only a genius cartoonist, but also a musical genius. The entire music of Rebellion was arranged by Dada. Even the song that made you burst into tears on Friday, HEN, was written by the master of the Phoenix Academy himself. How could I cry? Wait, a blushing Keikenhua looked at her roommate with a look of disbelief. Did you say that the song in the last episode was also written in capital letters by the Phoenix Academy? Drawing comics, writing songs, do you think the Phoenix Academy is such a monster? Ho ho, who told you, Achien, not to watch the beginning and end of the film every time? A proud smile appeared in the roommate's eyes. What is this? The incident of Phoenix Academy's famous name being brushed up on the internet, that monster-like talent, and he has a one-eyed look and so on, these things have been discussed many times. Don't think that Phoenix Academy is just a nerd who draws comics. You must know that he is also very famous on the internet recently. The name is on the screen. One-eyed. Kei Kinhua was full of doubts about what her roommate said. After hesitating for a moment, she decisively put down the comic and searched online for information about the murder of the Phoenix Academy. Information about the murder of the Phoenix Academy was also available online, but the real name one column is still blank. Kei Kinhua looked at the photo of Makoto Takahashi, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Is it really one-eyed? Are you dressing up like this just because of interest? Huh. This is. Phoenix Academy has already gone to the road of the devil. Let me die for the healing department, a post exuding endless resentment. The unforgettable hatred in it can even be felt by Kei Kinhua in front of the computer. Out of curiosity, Kei Kinhua clicked on this post. Don't read the big hole in Crayon Shin-chan, Kei Kinhua was confused after seeing the first sentence at the beginning. Although the comic Crayon Shin-chan has some unscrupulous dialogue, it will not lead to such a situation. Resentment. With curiosity, Kei Kinhua continued reading. Many people must have watched The Rebel aired on Friday, right? The scene between Charlie and Lelich made me cry. When I read the comic before, I don't think so yet, but with the song last night, I really couldn't help but cry. Well, that's not the point I want to say. The short story Crayon Shin-chan written by Yindaxon is a work with the guise of healing. I was tortured once by the Phoenix Institute on Friday, but I naively believed in the existence of the so-called cure. After that, I just want to say to the Phoenix Academy, go die, die, die. I would like to take this post as a warning to those who follow me, not to follow in my footsteps. It's too late, I've finished reading it. I want to ask if anyone knows the address of the Phoenix Court murderer. The Phoenix Courtyard murderer must be punished. Call me when you go upstairs. Let's form a team to defeat the Phoenix Academy murderer. The original poster is a good person, but unfortunately, I have finished reading it. Please join the crusade team. Having abandoned everything, I will transform into a vengeful ghost, and I will inevitably drag the murderous author of the Phoenix Academy into hell. This. Although neither the original post nor the subsequent reply stated why there was such a big resentment, Kei Kinhua still understood that the problem lies with Crayon Shin-chan. Kei Kinhua didn't understand why such a joyful work could arouse so much hatred. Kei Kinhua, who was holding various complicated emotions, picked up the comics he had left behind and continued reading. Bang, this is the close contact between the magazine called Young Junk and the ground. 10 minutes later, Kei Kinhua violently threw the comic to the ground. This unladylike behavior made the roommates on the side extremely surprised. Just when they were about to ask Kei Kinhua what happened, they saw Kei Kinhua's eyes were red and tears kept rolling in Kei Kinhua's eyes. Fa, what happened? Kei Kinhua's appearance shocked her roommate. He hurried to Kei Kinhua's side and looked at her nervously and worriedly. Weren't you smiling happily just now? Why now? Xioxin is dead. Kei Kinhua looked up at her roommate, falling into a daze, and kept repeating these words, Xioxin is dead. Huh? What are you talking about? Xioxin, what? You said Xioxin is dead. The roommate did not react at first, but as Kei Kinhua kept repeating, the roommate finally reacted and fell into a sluggish state. Somewhat disbelievingly, I picked up the comics on the ground. With trembling hands, I quickly flipped through the comics. The more I read, the more frightened I became. The naughty kid with the potato head and thick eyebrows did not say any happy words anymore. Instead, he closed his eyes tightly and lay quietly in a small coffin. Xioxin's father lowered his head and held him in his arms. A little girl stood aside silently, but Xioxin's mother was holding a crayon, scribbling on the ground, sometimes crying and sometimes laughing, and kept saying, "This is a dynamic Superman toy, Xioxin, you should be happy. This is chocolate, Xioxin should be happy. Xioxin, don't run away, Mom." Next to the comic, there is a narration like this. In order to save his sister, Xioxin died in a car accident. Xioxin's mother, because she could not bear the shock of losing Xioxin, suffered a mental disorder and was sent to the hospital. The whole happy family became torn apart because of a car accident. It's dead, this time it's definitely dead. Yoshida looked at this issue, sat at Makoto Takahashi's house, frowned, and kept mumbling. Looking at Makoto Takahashi, who was unaffected, Yoshida angrily grabbed Makoto Takahashi's collar and roared angrily, "Are you still in the mood to draw now? Do you know what the ending of your manga will be? What are the consequences?" The phone number of the editorial department was blown up. The readers formed a group to attack Yuichi. The commander was assassinated. Makoto Takahashi did not have any regrets on his face, but looked at Yoshida expectantly. "My dependent cat, it's just the beginning, don't be so excited, okay? Begin." Yoshida listened to Takahashi Makoto's words, cold sweat and black lines on his head. Beginning means the Demon King intimidates the world with the fear of violence, and I, the great Demon King Fengguangai Yuan Kishin. Takahashi Makoto showed a strange smile on his face. "What I have now is just the most basic healing and love, that's all." A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do SD Mao. Chapter 108. Question: Is Crayon Shin-chan considered a success? Answer: success, great success. Note: at the same time, warn the author of this world, Fengguangai Yuan Kuma, you have successfully attracted a lot of hatred and curses, and the Holy Grail has been completely polluted. At this time, even if you summon the unicorn that represents purity and Celebi that can purify the forest, you cannot save you from the black mud of the evil of this world. What are your last words? Last words: it hurts to change insects under the moon. The things that Takahashi Makoto predicted before did not happen completely, such as the assassination of the commander-in-chief. After all, killing the editor-in-chief for a comic book is simply impossible. Even the task of blood-bathing the editor that Takahashi Makoto expected was not triggered. After knowing this news, Takahashi Makoto snorted with regret and dissatisfaction. Tisk. No one actually triggered the task of killing all editorial staff. Is it because the love is not deep enough? Or is it because the healing heart has not been conveyed? Takahashi Makoto's unhappy complaint made Yoshida, who had just entered the door, very angry. Takahashi Makoto, what else do you want? The entire editorial department's phone has been blown up. There are readers holding signs protesting at Yuisha. Today is only the third day of the special issue, all because of your cheating work. Do you think the scene is not chaotic enough? And what's the matter with this weird task of killing all editorial staff? My beloved cat, I didn't expect you to show up at this time. Takahashi Makoto looked at the wall clock and showed a helpless expression on his face. Well, it's really unfortunate. Now I'm going to save the world. So you wait in the barrier for a while, and after I kill the 3 dark giants, I will send you back to your hometown to complete the wedding that has ended before it even started. If I can't come back, I must tell Rina, Shirley, Hatsune Karos, that it is my lifelong regret that I can't have sex with her. Saving the world and going back to my hometown to get married, let's not discuss these for the time being. Looking at Takahashi Makoto's expectant smile, Yoshida suddenly reacted, a mysterious death flag, and decisively changed his words. Ah-chan, if you have time to think about these things now, you might as well think about how to appease those readers who are about to riot. Rioting, Takahashi Makoto pondered for a moment, shook his head decisively, and smiled indifferently. There is no need to appease such things. After using the riot skill, you will fall into a state of chaos. Unless you have extremely good character or are self-centered, it is a sign of suicide. But Takahashi Makoto, if you continue to do this, you will lose the support of readers. You will definitely be hated by readers. It was Aoi Ueno who suddenly interrupted the topic and fell into an angry state again. She held the special issue of Shonen Jump tightly with both hands and said to Takahashi Makoto angrily, "This expression is great, but compared to Princess Rina, the cute attack is not lethal enough." After hesitating for a moment, Takahashi Makoto decisively lowered his head, flipped out a photo of Rina from his phone, and shook it in front of Ueno Aoi. "This is a cute act that is almost against the rules. See. If you practice hard, one day you will become the new darling of the cute world and a highly anticipated rising star." "Aiken, are you really not going to change the ending?" Yoshida and Ueno Aoi entered the explosive spirit state and launched a series of attacks on Takahashi Makoto, completing the sevenfold chain project. "Although I know you're in a bad mood recently, you can't do this. Drawing such a heartbreaking comic to torture readers, there must be a limit to willfulness. Hee, is this considered heartbreaking? Don't you think the contrast is the most loving?" Hearing Yoshida mention a taboo, Takahashi Makoto showed an unsettling smile on his face. At the beginning, the comic was extremely joyful and made people laugh out loud, but suddenly the plot took a magical turn and jumped directly into a sad and dark ending. The contrast created by the comparison between the before and after can make people feel double the joy. This is exactly the ultimate beauty that I, as the Demon King, pursue. Humph. If you, as mortals, want to understand, go home and practice for a few hundred years. Rather than being black-bellied. After Yoshida and Ueno Aoi looked at each other, their tacit understanding was greatly improved, and the super overlay was not activated, and the synchro summoning was successful. "It's better to say that I have entered the realm of evil. Tisk, 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 it's not my fault." Takahashi Makoto stared at Yoshida with an expectant smile on his face. "Have you forgotten? Who is the culprit who caused all these evils? If you want me to explain, then I will make everything public. At that time, the mission will definitely become suppress the ignorant board of directors of Uesha, a 10-star difficulty copy. My cat, how about this? Since you want me to compromise and activate trap cards against me, you must be prepared to be killed. Well, this might be fun. Occupy the righteousness and lead the army to kill the board of directors. Hee, the blue sky is dead, the yellow sky should be established. I am the devil, and I will kill all gods and demons." Takahashi Makoto launched a full-screen attack. Yoshida was fatally attacked and died. Ueno Aoi was seriously injured and could not fight. After this battle, Takahashi Makoto's level was upgraded, and it is suspected that he has opened the evil route. One Yoshida and one Ueno Aoi were captured. Takahashi Makoto is unstoppable. Ha 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 ha. Next to Takahashi Makoto, the yellow-haired man with glasses, one of the best friends in the group, rolled on the ground laughing while watching Takahashi Makoto's short story. Landai looked at his best friend with a melancholy face and a gloomy face. "Akito, is it really that serious?" Landai, who was unhappy, looked at his good friend who was laughing more and more exaggeratedly, and finally couldn't help complaining, "Didn't you burst into tears before? Why are you laughing so happily now? By the way, have you thought of a new story? Are funny comics really okay?" Hearing Landai say this, the yellow-haired man with glasses restrained his smile and fell silent. After a long time, he looked up at the ceiling weakly. "Funny comics. It's true. Funny comics." Seeing his good friend behave like this, Landai's face became more worried, and his hand unconsciously clenched the paintbrush. "It's not what Akito is good at. Hey, Takashi, what do you think of this comic by Cheng?" The man with yellow hair and glasses raised the special edition in his hand. "Let's not discuss the depressing ending at the end, just talk about the dialogues in it, although they seem a bit shameless, but they are really funny. I didn't expect Cheng to be good at this funny comic. I can't think of such a story at all. So I was thinking, should I ask Cheng about the key points of drawing funny comics?" This. Landai didn't refuse directly, but fell into deep thought. Although Landai has always believed that funny comics are not suitable for their style, the advice of Gangpu editor and the desire of their good partner to try made Landai a little confused. This is also good. So the good buddies set off in simple clothes and came to Takahashi Makoto's house. Comedy comics. Takahashi Cheng looked at the two confused people with a strange smile on his face. You should know the rules, right? Equivalent exchange. Sure enough. The two good friends looked at each other, their faces full of helplessness. Landai hesitated for a moment, then mustered up the courage. Then Cheng, what do you need to exchange this time? It won't be the same as last time, right? I have no interest in what I have already obtained. Takahashi Cheng stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, with a dangerous light flashing in his eyes. What should I ask for this time? The video of Landai and that person having sex? Or the close combat of the yellow-haired glasses man and the violent girl? It's really troubling. Hearing Takahashi Cheng's words, Yachin Mumenjai's faces turned red. They would also blush when they were angry and furious. Now with the superposition of the two states, the two fell into a state of stiffness. Yoshida nodded silently on the side, constantly recording something in his notebook. Regarding this knowledge, Yoshida usually goes back to the little otter for practice after learning. Only by combining knowledge with practice can we better master it. Speaking of which, Cheng, if you continue like this, you will definitely bully Rina to death after she marries you in the future. Yoshida looked at Takahashi Makoto's almost devilish smile, and after recording his notes, he stepped forward to provide assistance to Yashiro Mumenjai. But is it really assistance? Yoshida mentioned Rina maliciously, as if to make Takahashi Makoto fall into a more devilish state. Mary, when Takahashi Makoto heard Yoshida say this, the smile on his face became more dangerous, and even Yoshida regretted it a little. The malice emanating from that smile was felt by Yoshida, who took several steps back. Sure enough, for Takahashi Makoto at this stage, Rina is an existence that cannot be mentioned. Yoshida silently took out his notebook and recorded this fact in Takahashi Makoto's exclusive response plan. Ah, I thought of a new story. Yashiro Mumenjai also had an ominous premonition. The yellow-haired glasses man immediately stood up, pulled the blue who also reacted, and quickly fled from Takahashi Makoto's house. Tisk. Two disloyal guys, looking at the duo fleeing quickly, Yoshida cursed unhappily and activated his ability to change the subject. Hey, Cheng, how much of your new comic is finished? My beloved cat, you are really bad at changing the subject. Takahashi Cheng looked at Yoshida, who was sweating profusely, and complained disdainfully, then took out a thick file bag from the drawer and put it on the table in Yoshida's terrified eyes. This is the beginning of this monster era. Although I have agreed with the commander before that it will be serialized after the end of Higurashi, since you asked today, I will be merciful and take it out for you to see first. But I have said in advance that you can only watch from a distance, not play with it. The beginning? In other words, have you finished the first chapter? Yoshida seemed extremely surprised this time. Although Takahashi Cheng mentioned before that he was already drawing, it was still incredible for Yoshida to finish the first chapter so quickly. You know, Takahashi Makoto was drawing the 3 comics of Full Metal Alchemist, Higurashi, and Crayon Shin-chan while completing the first episode of Inuyasha. Isn't this speed a bit unreasonable? Third, all the stories were thought out before, so it was very fast to draw. Takahashi Makoto seemed to see through Yoshida's thoughts and explained slowly, but the order of speaking made Yoshida speechless. Second, it's not as exaggerated as you think. Crayon Shin-chan does not require very high painting skills, and it doesn't take a lot of time to draw. Finally, first, when the Higurashi Takatsuki arc began, the subsequent content was almost completed, and most of the work was done by Tintin and others, and it didn't take too much time. In other words, it seems that I am drawing 4 comics at the same time, but it's still the same as before, just drawing 2 comics at the same time. Even if you are only drawing 2 comics at the same time, you are really amazing, Yoshida sincerely praised Takahashi Makoto this time. He had been the editor-in-chief of some cartoonists before. Not to mention drawing 2 comics at the same time, many people even draw only 1 comic, but they have to take a break from time to time due to the pressure of the weekly magazine. In comparison, although Takahashi Makoto's abnormal second-year behavior sometimes makes people speechless, Yoshida still really admires him for insisting on serializing without taking a break. Don't show that kind of admiration. The reason I can do this is because I have been using plugins all the time. Takahashi Makoto shook his head, touched the eye mask on the left side of his face, and smiled helplessly. Speaking of this, maybe it's the fee charged by the plugin? Tisk, it really follows the principle of equivalent exchange. The last day of January, double update is presented. Sorry, dear readers, there are too many things in January, so basically only one update. A certain cat here is really sorry. Well, this is the second update, please rest early, that's all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Mao. Chapter 109. Mr. Nakai. After the beautiful elder sister brewed the atmosphere for a while, she used the beautiful girl's ultimate move to deal with the pervert uncle, a slap in the face. You are so terrible. The condition for becoming a partner is actually dating, as a man and as a human being. You are so terrible. Really? That's great. Nakai completely ignored the tearful woman opposite him, a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes, and stood up with a ferocious smile on his face. Since you have already said this for my sake, I have nothing to hesitate about. Then, Kato-chan is still waiting for me, goodbye. The fat uncle Nakai left alone, leaving the beautiful elder sister behind and sitting alone, sobbing softly. Just when Yuriko Aoki was about to leave, she suddenly heard a familiar voice coming from next to her. Hey! It's really troublesome to drink black tea because of Sebastian's departure. Sure enough, as the professor said, the greatest invention in the world is instant coffee. It should be said that he is worthy of being a professor, regardless of any suspicion. Sman or Yukawa Manabu, this unique taste that is almost ghostly. Aoki Yuriko followed the sound and saw a person who looked like an acquaintance. Although he put on an eye patch and became a one-eyed dragon, but, this unique speech, as expected. Are you, Phoenix's Kuma teacher? Yuriko Aoki walked up to Takahashi Makoto and looked at the frowning Takahashi Makoto, a little unsure. Huh, Makoto. Takahashi looked up at Yuriko Aoki and found that it was not the Yoshida he had agreed with before. He suddenly became a little unhappy. Hey. What, I thought it was the late guy from My Cat's Cat, it turns out to be you, Kang Shuhong. Little monster. Little monster, Aoki Yuriko, also known as Kang Shuhong, looked at Makoto Takahashi with a puzzled face, somewhat confused as to what Makoto Takahashi was talking about. The crying girl is very attractive. It is suspected of triggering a hidden plot. The Kang Shuhong route is opened. Please pay attention to whether you need to save before selecting the option. Huh? You look like this. After Takahashi-chan looked Kang Shuhong up and down, his body couldn't help but shrink back, and at the same time there was a wary look on his face. Although your eyes are red and swollen, you look like you begged after crying. He looked comforting, but I'm sorry, I made a promise with Her Majesty the Princess that I will not become the Demon King who takes the path of being a scumbag, so let's give up this delusion of building a crystal palace or something like that for you. Hey, Chen, I'm sorry, I'm a little late. Yoshida appeared in time, making Kang Shuhong, who was about to explain something, flinch. Huh? I didn't expect the eldest lady to be here too. Chen, are you, Hey, hey, are you doing this? If Rina-chan knew. Huh? I told you that this little monster is not the target of my strategy. Makoto Takahashi stared at Yashida angrily, completely ignoring the elder sister Aoki Hong, whose expression began to change from sadness to anger, and roared loudly, but I want to be the king of monsters. Although I wanted to become the pirate king Hokage before, but now that I am the leader of monsters, I should just lead the demons and conquer the eldest lady. Well, this praise for black tea. My beloved cat, how about we kidnap the sister who makes black tea here as a substitute for Sabas-chan? I'm leaving first. Kang Shuhong noticed that Takahashi Makoto's speech attracted strange looks from around him, and decisively decided to leave midway. If she continues, something strange will definitely happen. This is what female intuition tells her. Hey, woman, please pay attention to safety on the way back. There is no Superman in this world who wears underwear outside, and there is no spider brother like Tarzan in the city. Makoto Takahashi did not hold back Kang Shuhong's departure, but there's just a demon king. So if you're attacked, it's useless to call for help. After listening to Takahashi Makoto's words, Kang Shuhong hesitated for a moment, then suddenly quickened his pace and left the cafe quickly. Yashida, who was on the side, didn't even have time to say anything. He could only watch Kang Shuhong's back disappear. The player Makoto Takahashi did not trigger the hidden plot of Kang Shuhong. Kang Shuhong's route was not opened, the strategy mission was not opened, Kang Shuhong's favorability dropped, and the impression of the player Makoto Takahashi turned into an unreasonable Chuyunibu. Archive. Then, let's get to the point now. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yashida with a smile on his face. According to what the commander said before, because there is not enough output to clear readers' copies, the serialization of Inuyasha will be started in advance. The actual situation is like this. Yashida also looked a little unhappy. The new serial submitted this month cannot even reach the most basic quantity. Although I have discussed it with the editor-in-chief before, but, is there no problem? If you serialize 3 comics at the same time, physically. Ho, don't underestimate His Highness the Great Demon King of the Sixth Heaven. Makoto Takahashi showed an expectant smile on his face. What an unexpected reinforcement. Now the King of Black Flame and I are in a stalemate, and the dog monsters, it's just the right time. With the brutal output ability of Steel in the later stage and the full armor of Han Cicada, it is definitely not a dream to complete the super god killing. Ha 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 ha. I've watched some of Hanging before, and there's no problem with it. But about Steel. Yashida's face was full of doubts. Chang, you seem to be very confident about the follow-up content of Steel. That's it? You have been painting Inuyasha for a while, is there really no problem with Metal Steel? Humph, my beloved cat, let me show you the miracle called the longest record in one day. Makoto Takahashi showed an expectant smile on his face, looking at Yashida with eyes full of excitement. With a playful look, I hope that by then, the birth of that day will cause the editorial department to be extremely entangled. What do you want to do again, Chen? Yashida became a little uneasy. Hey, don't forget about Crayon Shin-chan. Although I was glad that nothing big happened afterwards, but something like that will happen again. If so, maybe the editor-in-chief will have a heart-to-heart talk with you. I'm very unhappy that the readers have only been making trouble for a week. Makoto Takahashi turned his head and complained unhappily, Pa. I was still hoping that radical elements would appear and blow up the Yui Society. Or maybe the Bloodbath editorial staff said, is this the only result? In the final analysis, it is really because of not enough love. About Inuyasha. Yashida suppressed the anger of slapping Takahashi Makoto, took a deep breath, and made suggestions to Takahashi Makoto. Although the content of the first chapter has been completed before, but the serialization by the way, Chen, you haven't had a good rest in the past few years, why don't you take a break before you start serializing? This kind of sudden kindness. Makoto Takahashi hesitated for a moment, then looked at Yoshida with a puzzled face. My beloved cat, what are you planning? Although I really want to agree, there is always something ominous about it. I'm kindly giving you a hint. If you want to plot against the Demon King, you will eventually fall into the abyss. This is an unwritten rule in this world. In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy is just a paper tiger. My beloved cat with a bad conscience, you are seeking your own death. Having said that, Takahashi Makoto also feels that taking some time off is also a good option. According to the strategy tips in some games, since Yoshida has proposed the rest option, some hidden tasks may be triggered. Hidden missions, girls to gain favorability, hidden monsters to gain rare equipment and props, this is the essence of the game. So Takahashi Makoto and many assistants teamed up and headed towards the dungeon-crowded zoo together. Well, of course, the guide Yoshida who died on the appearance and the sea otter-kun with a mocking face are also indispensable. By the way, because of Makoto Takahashi's invitation, Little Sea Otter, who was finally able to take a break from drawing comics, has already elevated Makoto Takahashi's status from a spiritual mentor to the level of the god of the new world. Kami-sama, Hirameruaki, will also become your devout believer. The Little Sea Otter has been following Makoto Takahashi. Because he is not good at interpersonal communication, the Little Sea Otter is afraid of the crowds in the zoo, so he has to follow Makoto Takahashi closely. Chiao Chang, under your protection, even the Yoshida clan, I have nothing to fear at this moment. How dare you say that? Yoshida, who was a few steps behind, clenched his fists in displeasure, with a sinister smile on his face. Hirameru-kun, if you want to see photos of your beautiful assistant, go back and stay up all night to finish this chapter. If you want to go on a date, you have to complete the 3 chapters. Yoshida, I understand, but don't say this at this time. Is it because the Little Sea Otter has a small face that he doesn't have any thoughts of resistance? Makoto Takahashi, who was walking in front, shook his head and said nothing when he saw a familiar figure from behind. Oh, this is really a fateful encounter. Makoto Takahashi turned and looked behind him, where the Little Sea Otter was wagging its tail and begging for mercy to Yoshida. A smile appeared on his face. Sure enough, is this a side plot? But since the Little Sea Otter appears, the treasure that the Sea Otter needs, logically speaking, should have a monster that protects the treasure, huh? It turns out that the guardian monster this time is a yellow-haired one. The interesting unfolding is about to begin. Switch to S mode. The Little Sea Otter, who was having a mysterious conversation with Yoshida, suddenly felt a chill. Before he had time to think about it, a hand suddenly appeared on his shoulder. When the frightened Little Sea Otter was about to scream, he realized that standing behind him was none other than the god who saved him, Takahashi Makoto, with a weird smile on his face. Little Sea Otter, I found the treasure you have been looking for a long time. The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face made Yoshida aware of a hint of danger, but it was too late to stop him. Takahashi Makoto pointed in a certain direction sinisterly. Little Sea Otter, look at that lonely figure asking for comfort. Is that your saint? Then an exciting and loving scene appeared. Miss Kang Shuhong, with tears in her eyes, hugged tightly the dull-looking gentleman with yellow hair and glasses, while the violent woman on the side showed an expression of resentment on her face, shouted something loudly, and was about to run away in tears. As for the Little Sea Otter, because he looked at the object of his current love, he threw himself into the arms of other men and entered a state of complete petrification. A single but beautiful little red monster with a green tree, a stupid-looking girl with a violent fighting spirit, Mayashi, a man with yellow-haired glasses who looks loyal but has scumbag attributes, and a girl with a shy face who is easy to bully. The Little Sea Otter. Listening to this sarcastic introduction, the corners of Yoshida's mouth kept twitching. Takahashi Makoto is definitely seeking death. Couldn't this guy feel that the eyes of everyone present looking at him were full of hostility? First, never act on impulse. Second, never miss any bad thing. Third, the referee is absolutely fair and beautiful. The new world referee devil, Fengguangai Yuan Kyoma, is here to see you. Takahashi Makoto was completely trapped in a certain delusion mode. He thought he had a handsome pose, walked to the center, and announced loudly, "I will be the referee of this love-hate battle. Come on, everyone, fight to your heart's content." A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do SD Mao. Chapter 110. G&G, marry me. I love you most in the world, so marry me. Searched can on Google. Regarding the upcoming battle of love and death, Mr. Huang Mao and Glasses suddenly resorted to foul tactics, unlocked the hidden attributes that had been sealed, and used the swastika called proposal on Myanji to make this person a battle of love and death, rapid killing, which made the devil Takahashi Makoto, who was happily preparing to watch the show, very unhappy. Don't think you can deceive me by imitating a sincere look. Seeing G's answer, Makoto Takahashi nodded. Yes, that's how it feels. Then he decisively used the super kill, Baidu 7 kills Katayan Cannon, etc., to kill the yellow-haired Glasses gentleman who was awakening a certain attribute. Damn it! It's not imitation, it's now, marry me now. The yellow-haired Glasses man threw the master ball, and he visually predicted that the wild man would be successfully captured. Hey! Is it too late for this kind of development? Sure enough, after the hidden attribute awakens, it is unstoppable. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida behind him with a disappointed look on his face, and ordered unwillingly, "My dependence cat, this is the time. Go ahead and knock the yellow-haired Glasses man to the ground to prevent his awakening. I will never let him evolve successfully if I press the cancel button from behind." Although Takahashi Makoto was looking forward to falling into a love and kill battle, the result was still biased towards the happy ending that he loved to see. Especially over there, a certain pair of people who kept showing affection and discussing marriage-related matters made Takahashi Makoto and the little sea otter depressed, and their combat effectiveness dropped sharply. "Hey, little sea otter, how about we go have a drink tonight?" Makoto Takahashi looked at the little sea otter who couldn't join in the conversation and could only secretly glance at the red little monster from time to time. He put forward seemingly comforting suggestions and murmured in a low voice. "Get up, although we can't see the battle of falling in love and killing each other, watching the little sea otters perform various unethical performances after being drunk may make up for the sense of loss. Do you want to drink?" "Thank you, the merciful God." After listening to Takahashi Makoto's suggestion, the little sea otter realized that he didn't have to draw comics because of drinking at night, so he decisively agreed. As for Makoto Takahashi's whisper, the little sea otter didn't hear it at all. Having said that, under the supervision of Yoshidaji, 2 people who tried to sneak out to drink were caught on the way. Moreover, the unscrupulous Yoshida used Kang Shuhong as bait to successfully instigate the little sea otter to rebel, making Takahashi Makoto become the tragic devil who betrayed everyone. Huh? This situation is, hey, Mr. Huang-haired Glasses, it's really unbelievable. Makoto Takahashi entered L mode, squatted on a chair, and looked at the girl next to Mr. Huang-haired Glasses. They had a look of surprise on their faces. "Although I know you have just become awakened today, I remember that attribute does not come with a scum aura and a Tauran aura. Why is Landai's local wife here? Don't tell me that you can be a Tauran. Such a shocking fact makes me feel uneasy. And with so many girls out there, have you really become a scumbag? Takagi, can you beat this guy up?" The only one who can say this is Mayashi-san, who can compete with Takahashi Makoto. Seeing her unhappy expression, the man with yellow hair and glasses smiled awkwardly and tried to comfort her. As for Yadu, he fell into a state of shyness because of someone's title of local wife. As for Kang Shuhong, she was held back by the betrayer of the little sea otter. Yoshida was carefully recording something on the side, but the dark smile on his face indicated that the little sea otter would encounter many happy things in the future. Chen, when our new comic is serialized, I will marry Mayashi. The man with yellow-haired glasses looked at Makoto Takahashi with a smile on his face. He was in a good mood. Under Yashida's horrifying eyes, he stepped on landmine. So, Chen, when will you marry Miss Rina? Getting married. Makoto Takahashi fell silent, and the smile on his face gradually dimmed. Yashida had already covered his eyes and did not dare to read any more. The matter about Rina has been listed as a forbidden matter within the scope of information that Takahashi Makoto can accept, and now this idiot actually mentioned it blatantly. As expected, Huang Mao is dragging down his teammates. Exists. At that moment, Yashida really wanted to drag the yellow-haired glasses guy out and beat him up. Marrying Princess Rina, Takahashi Makoto's calm look surprised Yashida, who was ready to teleport. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Takahashi Makoto's more ferocious speech. How is such a thing possible? It happens. Hey, everyone was completely in a state of surprise. The yellow-haired glasses man pushed up his glasses and looked at Makoto Takahashi with a puzzled expression. But you are not dating Rina. Well, it's true. But even if we live together in the future, we won't get married. Makoto Takahashi didn't care at all how surprising the answer he gave was, and started stacking the tables. The sugar cube on the top said, my settings don't have that attribute, so marrying Rina or something like that is completely impossible. Attributes. Mr. Huang-haired glasses finally realized that he seemed to have been mentioned about attribute awakening before, so he asked curiously, that attribute specifically refers to. Do you need an explanation? Of course it's a wife-controlling attribute, Makoto Takahashi said matter-of-factly. After the yellow-haired glasses guy marries a violent woman, the violent woman becomes a wife. Correspondingly, the yellow-haired glasses guy, you have also become a wife controller. Men after marriage are all wife controllers. However, in my setting, there is no such attribute as a wife controller, so your logical reasoning skills are really poor. It's because of the sitting posture. Sitting like this can improve your reasoning ability. Wife control. Not to mention a few innocent children, even Yashida couldn't resist it. As expected, the Demon King named Takahashi Makoto's firepower output was really too cruel. There is no excuse to shirk responsibility for the group destruction. The corner of Yashida's mouth kept twitching. Looking at Makoto Takahashi, he only had unparalleled admiration in his heart. To reach this level as a junior high school student, he is also at a superb pace. But Yashida is very curious. If he waits until Rina returns to China, will Takahashi Makoto still dare to say this? Yashida felt it was necessary to buy a high-value accidental life insurance for Makoto Takahashi, and he could fill in his name as the beneficiary. Yellow-haired glasses-kun, you just seemed to say that you will get married as soon as the manga is serialized, right? Makoto Takahashi showed a bad smile again. In other words, if your manga is not serialized, you will be lonely. A lifetime. Speaking of my cat, my new series will definitely collide with theirs, right? Chen, did you do this on purpose? Yashida looked at Makoto Takahashi and shook his head helplessly. Unfortunately, the serialization of your manga has been confirmed, but for a Jumumenha, it is estimated that there will still be some time. Several people's faces were a bit ugly. The man with yellow hair and glasses looked at Makoto Takahashi in disbelief, and his voice became hoarse. Chen, you mean, you are going to start a new serial? What kind of comic is it? The new comic is the story of a dog monster and a girl, who team up to explore monsters and hunt for treasure. The explanation given by Makoto Takahashi made Yashida ashamed. The previous explanation of the name Inuyasha didn't seem to be like this. A dog is a dog, which also means that the male protagonist Inuyasha is a dog monster, and Yasha, in the folklore of Dongjo, also has the meaning of guardianship. But now what is going on with this explanation? Although the main plot is indeed like this, it sounds so awkward. Although a lot of happy things happened today, the yellow-haired glasses man became a little disappointed. It was not because he was complaining about wife control that he awakened, but because he heard that Makoto Takahashi was planning to start serializing a new comic. Like Landai, he also has a heart that refuses to admit defeat. The promise I made with Mayashi today was not just a casual talk, but a real intention to do it. If you don't become a serialized cartoonist, you won't be worthy of seeing G. Although he has never said it, Mr. Huang-haired glasses knows it and has always known it. If a man has no ambition and success, he will not be able to face the woman who silently supports him behind him. This is not the so-called machismo, but the unwillingness and inferiority complex held by human beings. Facing the god or goddess you love, are you too cowardly to confess your love? Don't be kidding me, because I didn't achieve the so-called success, I became cowardly, retreated, and had low self-esteem. As for me, I will become a god of challenge. It seemed that he was aware of the loss of the yellow-haired glasses man, or the recurrence of Takahashi Saichu's second disease. In short, the topic was awkwardly changed. That's right, when I become a comic book world after becoming the great demon king, I will challenge those beings who have been dubbed gods and demons. The successful serialization and animation of comics are just the beginning. My journey will be full of gods and demons. People are great because of their dreams. Cheng, you are right. The disappointment on the yellow-haired glasses man's face gradually disappeared, and the smile returned to his face. Although the Supreme Leader said that it is impossible to do that kind of thing, I think we will also embark on the road to challenge gods and demons in the future. The yellow-haired glasses man was encouraged by the devil, regained his fighting spirit, and confirmed his new goal. When you get together with your gay friends in the evening, you will enter a state of overwhelming fighting power, and your gay love will rise to a new level. Congratulations. Congratulations. Oh. Is this the special effect of the wife control attribute? But with your current strength, I will not let you challenge the gods and demons. What can you do if you don't do anything? It's just a hindrance and someone's head. Takahashi as Cheng spoke, he took out a paintbrush from his pocket and handed it to the yellow-haired glasses gentleman with a smile. Then, as a witness to the awakening of your wife-controlling attribute, your soul mentor, the fierce demon king of the Phoenix Academy, will give this to you. I have gathered infinite magic power and can use the noble phantasm Dark Malyang's pen to project illusions, and I will lend it to you for the time being. This. It's just an ordinary paintbrush, right? And it's still used, not new at all. And it's just alone? There are really too many places for the yellow-haired glasses man to complain. This is one of my most cherished treasures. Cherish it. Makoto Takahashi stood up and looked down at the yellow-haired glasses man with a hearty smile on his face. One day, you will become I will get it back after becoming a super popular cartoonist. This is a promise. Takahashi Makoto didn't care about the twitching expression on the yellow-haired glasses man's face, hid his left hand in his clothes, and turned around as if he had a broken arm. He actually imitated Shanks. The man with yellow hair and glasses kept twitching, his head was covered with black lines, and his lips trembled as he said, and it doesn't look like him at all. On the first day of February, let's do a double kill. Good night, dear readers.